We've likely all met or been someone who has disordered habits when it comes to eating, body image, or food, and we've likely all wondered how to help. So just what is our perception when it comes to disordered eating? I think for many of us, we imagine a young woman, perhaps in her late teens or early 20s, who's vain, maybe consumed with body image, only interested in what she needs to do in order to look her best. And that's where we're wrong. Disordered eating impacts young men and young women, most of them in their late teens or early 20s. It can impact people in almost any spectrum of society. We often think that someone with disordered eating will be rail thin or perhaps look a certain way, but it turns out that for most people, we would never know as they walk past us on the street. Disordered eating can take many forms, including limiting calories, binging or purging, and excessive exercise. It's most often an attempt to cover feelings of shame, anxiety, and powerlessness in their lives. And it is dangerous. Disordered eating can lead to irreversible and sometimes life-threatening problems, including kidney damage, liver failure, fertility issues, and loss of life. So what warning signs are we looking out for? We need to keep an eye out for a student who perhaps seems to spend too much time or focus on their food, their calorie intake, or their exercise levels. We want to make sure that when we see a student who seems to be out of balance in those areas, that we note what's happening in their lives. We want to watch for students who have anxiety around meal times, who perhaps choose not to eat in front of everyone else, or even make a point of not showing up if food is going to be a part of our activity. You may see them heading to the bathroom right after they eat, or perhaps hear about them binging in the night, or hoarding high-calorie foods. So how do we best help? We need to make sure that we help the student and not enable the disorder, which means that as we talk to students, we need to make sure we validate them and not simply talk about their actions. We need to make sure we avoid talking about the intricacies and the details of their disordered eating behaviors. We need to encourage them to not recount every detail of what it's like to binge or purge or overeat, exercise excessively, or what it looks like when they count their calories. We don't actually need to know that part. Instead, we need to let the student know we're concerned about them and their health and the impact that these activities can have on the student. We need to make sure that we also don't minimize those behaviors. Simply because we don't want to hear the specifics doesn't mean that those behaviors and their impact are not important. We need to make sure that they know the seriousness and severity of the behaviors they're engaged in, and we need to let them know the importance of following to the advice given to them by a doctor or counsellor, and that how important it is for them to follow their treatment plan. While we know that their outward behaviors are as a result of inward pain, we need to make sure that we don't allow their pain to make excuses for the behaviors that they're exhibiting. We need to encourage them toward fullness and wholeness and health in their lives. We also need to make sure that youth are accountable for their behaviors. They need to know the seriousness of their actions and know that binging and purging or excessively exercising or limiting their caloric intake is going to have lasting consequences for them. We need to make sure that we're direct as we recommend or encourage change in their behaviors. Subtle suggestions or perhaps going around the topic isn't actually helpful for the students. They need to know that we're talking specifically about a certain topic in their life. We need to ask them questions about the roots beneath that, and we need to make sure that they understand the correlation between what's happening on the inside and their actions on the outside. Finally, we need to make sure that we help our teen connect with a team of people who can help them more than we can. Most of us aren't trained counselors. Most of us need the help of a medical doctor, a physician who understands eating disorders, and not all of them do. We also need to make sure we pull in the help of a trained counselor, a professional psychologist who's going to be able to recommend a treatment plan and help deal with the root issues that are involved. We need to encourage the teen to be involved in some way, in some sort of group where they can share what's going on and what happens inside of them. We also need to help them understand that God sees them and loves them in the midst of all of their hurt and pain, that whenever they've felt anxious or powerless or shameful, that Jesus hasn't simply been sitting near them, but he's been sitting with them and holding them in their pain. We need to introduce them to a God who can help them remove some of that shame and anxiety. Remember that as we introduce the teen to a team of people that surrounds them, we are then giving them better tools and resources to walk towards wholeness and health in their lives.